It started with 3 knocks. Not loud, but wrong. Each one came slow, too slow, echoing through the wooden walls like something testing how alive I was. At first, I thought it was the wind pushing loose boards, maybe a branch scraping the porch rail. But then, the 3rd knock didn't just sound, it vibrated the air. You could feel it in your chest, not your ears. I remember holding my breath, waiting for a 4th one. Nothing came. The silence afterward was thicker than before, like the forest itself was holding still. Then I saw it. A shape, just beyond the porch light's edge. Tall, but the shoulders were too narrow, the limbs too long. It stood there, not moving, like it was listening for me. I told myself I was seeing shadows, tricks from the firelight inside. But when it tilted its head, slow and unnatural, I knew this wasn't any person. That's when the doorknob started to turn, gently, as if whoever or whatever was out there didn't need permission to come in. And before I could move, it whispered, my own voice, from the other side of the door. Are you awake?
I'd gone up to that cabin to get away, to breathe a little. It belonged to a friend from work who said, use it any time, just bring your own firewood. So one Friday afternoon, I packed a few things, filled the truck, and drove north until the cell bars disappeared. The cabin sat about 3 miles off a dirt road, tucked between 2 pines that leaned like they were whispering secrets to each other. It wasn't fancy. 1 bedroom, wood stove, no power, no signal. The kind of quiet you don't hear anymore. The plan was simple. Stay a few days, sleep, maybe fish the next morning. No TV, no people, no stress. Just the wind, the smell of cedar, and the cold. That night, the sky was clear enough to see stars cut through the black like glass scratches. The kind of silence that presses against your ears. I remember standing on the porch with a cup of coffee, thinking how strange it felt to hear nothing, not even crickets. Inside, the cabin creaked with every step. Old wood, dry air. The kind of place that remembers every footstep. Still, it felt safe, familiar somehow. If I'd known what was waiting out there, I never would have locked myself in so comfortably.
The first evening passed exactly how I had hoped it would. I unpacked, got a fire going, and let the warmth crawl through the cabin. There was a quiet rhythm to it. The sound of logs shifting, the kettle humming just before a boil, the faint whistle through the chimney. I sat near the window for a while, reading by lantern light. Outside, snow began to fall. Thin at first, then heavier, until it blurred the tree line into one white sheet. It was peaceful, in that kind of way that feels earned. Around midnight, I noticed how still everything had gotten. The fire pocked, but that was it. No wind, no branches brushing the roof, not even the usual night insects. Just an odd, perfect silence. I remember setting the book down and listening, half expecting to hear an owl or a coyote somewhere in the distance. But there was nothing. When I finally stepped out to grab another log from the stack, I saw something strange. The snow was smooth everywhere, except for a single line of impressions that stopped right at the porch. Not footprints, not paw prints. More like something had slid or dragged across the snow and vanished under the steps. I told myself it was runoff from the roof, or maybe a branch that had fallen. I even laughed at how quick my brain went to weird explanations. Still, I brought the wood in faster than usual and double-latched the door that night. It's funny. Looking back, That was the first time I felt like the cabin was listening. It was a little after 2 when the first knock came. 3 dull thuds, evenly spaced, like someone testing a wall for weakness. At first, I thought it came from the wood stove, maybe the metal expanding from the heat. But then it happened again, softer this time, from the direction of the front door. I sat there, listening, heart picking up in my throat. The fire was still burning, crackling just enough to mask whatever that sound was. I leaned forward, trying to catch it again, telling myself it was probably snow falling off the roof. But it wasn't. Snow doesn't knock in rhythm. When the third set came, it wasn't against the door anymore. It was on the wall. 3 slow knocks, sliding downward between each one, the kind of sound that feels deliberate. I grabbed the flashlight from the table and killed the lantern. The cabin went dark, except for the faint orange glow from the fire. My breath fogged instantly in the cold. For a few seconds, nothing, just my own breathing. Then, tap, 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 right against the window behind me. I spun around, light trembling in my hand, but the beam hit nothing but the frost on the glass. Outside, the snow was untouched. The porch light barely reached the tree line, and everything beyond that was pure black. That's when I realized how deep the silence really was. Even my heartbeat sounded wrong. Too loud, too steady. I waited there for a full minute, light fixed on the door, telling myself that if someone was out there, they'd knock again. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. Sitting there, waiting, listening. It made the air feel too tight. So I decided to check, just to prove to myself there was nothing out there. I slipped my boots on, grabbed the flashlight, and eased the door open. The hinge groaned like it hadn't moved in years. The cold hit immediately, sharp, wet, biting at the inside of my nose. Snowflakes drifted in slow circles under the porch light, but beyond that, it was pure darkness. The kind that eats the beam of your flashlight before it reaches the trees. The snow on the porch looked untouched. No prints, no marks, except for one small patch near the railing where it looked slightly sunken, like something heavy had been standing there for a while. I leaned forward, scanning the tree line. My breath fogged, hung in the air, and then drifted sideways, like a current had brushed past me. But there was no wind. For a moment, I thought I saw movement, something tall between the pines, shifting just enough for the light to catch it. But when I aimed straight at it, the beam just died there, like the darkness swallowed it whole. I took one slow step forward, the snow crunching under my boot, and something answered. Not a footstep, not an echo. It was the same sound, but this time from the other side of the cabin. 3 knocks, dragging down the wall. My stomach dropped. Whatever it was, it had moved fast. Too fast for anything on 2 legs. I backed toward the door, keeping the light out, sweeping the tree line, and whispered, almost to myself, "All right, enough." The air felt heavier as I reached for the handle. That's when I noticed the frost on the doorknob. Not a thin layer, but thick, white, fresh. Like someone had pressed something freezing against it moments before. I went back inside, locked both latches, and pulled a chair against the door. Then, I waited. But the worst part wasn't the silence after. It was realizing that whatever was out there now knew I was awake. I must have sat there for half an hour staring at the door waiting for something, anything, to move. The fire had burned down to embers and the only sound was the faint tick of cooling wood. Then, from outside, it came again. 3 knocks,
same rhythm. Only this time, they weren't at the front door. They were on the back wall. I froze. The back wall faced nothing but forest. No porch, no path, just 20 feet of snow and trees. Each knock was slower now, heavier, like whatever was doing it knew exactly where I was sitting. I stood up and turned off the flashlight. If it could see the light through the windows, I didn't want to give it a target. The room went almost black, lit only by the last glow from the fire pit. Then came the sound of wood stretching, the faint creak of weight on the porch boards, moving around the cabin. Step by step. I counted 7 slow steps until it stopped right outside the window near the table. The glass frosted white in an instant, spreading outward in tiny spiderweb cracks. I watched the pattern bloom, realizing something cold was breathing on it. And then I heard it. A whisper. Low, barely human. It said my name. Not loud, not clear, but mine. I couldn't move. My whole body locked. The sound came again. Closer. Now against the wood, like it was pressing its face to the wall. Then came a voice, almost identical to mine, whispering through the gap in the frame. Let me in. You're cold, aren't you? Every hair on my arm stood up. I backed toward the hallway, eyes fixed on the door. The knob started to turn, slow, deliberate. It didn't rattle or shake. It turned. The chair I'd wedged under the handle creaked as the pressure built. Something on the other side was pushing, steady, patient. I could hear its breathing now. It wasn't gasping or panting. It was steady, slow, like it didn't need air the way we do. I whispered to myself, "Don't open it. Don't even blink." And then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The knob turned back to center. Silence. Total silence. For a moment, I thought maybe it had gone, until I saw the shadow on the floor. A long, bent outline stretching from the crack under the door, reaching almost halfway across the room. And just as I noticed it, it moved. I didn't think. I just moved. Snatched the axe from beside the woodpile and backed toward the hallway, eyes never leaving that strip of shadow under the door. It stayed still until the floorboards groaned overhead. Something was on the roof. The sound was wrong. Too light for its size, too careful. The boards flexed once, twice, then silence again. I gripped the axe tighter, my palms slick with sweat that shouldn't have been there in that freezing air. A soft scraping started above the window frame, like nails tracing the edge of the wall. Then the lantern hanging near the bed began to sway, slowly at first, then violently, clinking against the hook. That's when the window beside it cracked. A thin white line spread across the glass, and a fingertip, gray, narrow, jointed too many times, pressed through the gap. I ran, straight into the back room, slammed the door and threw the bolt. My breath came in clouds, each one smaller than the last. For minutes, all I heard was pacing, outside, along the walls. Sometimes tapping, sometimes dragging. Each circuit a little faster, a little closer. Then, silence again. The kind that hums in your ears. I waited for dawn like it was a promise. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking to light. Pale gold spilling through the window, soft and clean. When I finally opened the front door, the world looked untouched. No tracks, no damage, except the claw marks on the inside of the door, just beneath the handle. 4 perfect grooves, carved deep into the wood. I didn't stay long after that. Packed what I could, left the rest, and never went back. But sometimes, when the house gets quiet at night, I still hear it. 3 knocks. Always 3.
I left the cabin that morning without looking back. The road out was half buried in snow, and the truck heater took nearly an hour to fight the cold. But even with the engine humming, I kept glancing in the mirror, half expecting to see someone or something walking along the tree line behind me. When I got back to town, I told the sheriff what happened. He didn't say much, just stared for a while, then said, "You stayed up near the lake road, right?" When I nodded, he sighed. Apparently, I wasn't the first. 2 hikers the previous winter had reported hearing knocks on their cabin door, always around 2 in the morning. They left before sunrise and never came back for their gear. The sheriff didn't file a report, said it wasn't worth the paperwork. Later that week, I looked up the area, old logging records, ranger notes, even folklore. Back in the 1930s, workers there used to talk about something they called the Echo Man, a thing that mimicked voices to get people to open their doors. Some said it wandered the tree line at night, tapping or knocking in 3s. Others claimed it was a spirit of someone who froze out there, still trying to come in. I don't know what I believe. All I know is that sometimes, late at night, when the world goes too still, I still find myself listening for it. And every now and then, just before sleep, I think I hear those same 3 knocks, far off in the distance. That night taught me something I'll never forget. Not everything that knocks wants to come in. Sometimes, it just wants to know you're there. If you've ever stayed somewhere remote and heard something you couldn't explain, I'd like to hear about it. Maybe we can figure out what's waiting out there when the woods go quiet. Until then, keep your lights low and never answer after the 3rd knock. They didn't, not for a while, and somehow that was worse.